Hello, I am Sarvesh Chandra. I am a research scholar at IIM Koikot in the strategic management area. Today, in next 8 to 10 minutes, I'm going to walk you through my research topic, the key findings and the implications. So my research topic is role of institutional logic in defining energy transition goals, aspirations, and strategic behavior, which includes a comparative study of strategic investment in state-owned and industry-owned oil and gas organizations. So what are the key motivations for my thesis? First and foremost is the global warming. Studies have already shown that the global warming has increased substantially in last 4 decades. Now, Earth's temperature is almost 1.4 degrees centigrade above the pre-industrial level, and we already see the implication of that around us. In terms of oil and gas contribution to the global emission, oil and gas contributes nearly 15% of the global energy-related greenhouse emissions from the direct operations, which are known as Scope 1 and Scope 2 emission, and 40% from value chain activities, which are known as Scope 3 emission. Now, considering the global warming and the impact of global warming, 195 countries around the world, they signed the Paris Agreement in 2015, and subsequent to that, several oil and gas companies, they pledged to achieve net zero emissions by the year 2050. Then came COVID in 2020, and the oil and gas demand plummeted, and several companies thought that oil and gas demand is going to plateau very soon, or in fact, they will start declining by next decade or by 2030. Contrary to their belief, during the Russia-Ukraine war in 2022, there was a serious energy crisis in European Union, and the focus was shifted to energy trilemma, which is trying to balance the energy security, affordability, and sustainability. Even during the recent crisis of Iran, US, and Israel war, again there was a supply chain, oil and gas supply chain has got disrupted, and the focus has shifted to ensuring the energy security. So one side you have the parameters which leads to the reduction in the greenhouse emission. On the other side, you have parameters which increases the fossil fuel consumption and thereby the contribution of oil and gas industry in the greenhouse gas emissions. So this is the delicate balance which oil and gas companies have to manage. And to ensure that we have adequate energy supplies, oil and gas industry needs $14 trillion of investment over 2 decades, which amounts to around 600 billion of investment each year. Now, this slide shows you how do oil and gas companies manage the energy transition. So typically, national oil companies, they are driven by the national mandate. We call it that state logic, basically to optimize the hydrocarbon production and provide support, revenue support to the government. And for IOCs, they are embedded in the market logic, which is focused on maximizing the profit. Post Paris Agreement in 2015 and COVID, several European IOCs, international companies, they adopted very aggressive practices to move away from the fossil fuel and achieve aggressive growth in the renewables. As a matter of fact, like one of the companies, BP, they announced that they will reduce fossil fuel production by 40% by the year 2030. Though, of course, they revised these targets later on. And some of the IOCs, they changed their identities from oil and gas companies to the energy company. So that kind of pitch in terms of new identity and practice created a discomfort for the incumbent firms in like NOCs or American IOCs. And when this kind of situation occur, the organizations typically adopt the sense-making process through which they try to justify what they are doing, and also if they try to indicate or if they want to change their identity, they indicate through the sense making process. So what we see here, NOCs, they support their decision of the hydrocarbon growth by saying that they want to maximize the value of hydrocarbon endowment which God has given to them, provide energy security not only to them but also to the entire world, especially to the global south. But while they do that, they ensure that they achieve the lowest cost and lowest carbon intensity barrel. So that's the kind of new thing they are trying to bring in. And then they, like, for energy transition for them, it's not like a switch. It's a gradual process which we have to, has to go along with the energy security and the affordability. Similarly, for the IOCs, they are still focusing on the shareholder return, and for them, the emission reduction, the profit maximization goes along with their current objective of the profit maximization. So for them, it is not a either or situation. It is for them, it is an and equation. Okay, and each of these narratives has an implication on how the decision-making process is influenced. So now what we see how this new entity of NOCs and American IOCs are emerging. For NOCs, now instead of purely hydrocarbon production maximization, now they are also adding that, okay, we also are producing the lowest cost and lowest carbon intensity barrel. And for IOCs, for them, they are changing their identity to be responsible producers, that while they are maximizing the profit, while they are producing the hydrocarbon, they are responsible and also taking care of the climate. And to do that, they are adopting several practices. And the implication of that is in terms of decision making. For INOCs, the decision making is still pivoted around protecting their identity through hierarchical attention. The most important goal for them is still the production, and the climate is a secondary goal which is subordinate to the production goal. And for the IOCs, decision making is around gaining the legitimacy through simultaneous attention to both the profit maximization as well as the pollution reduction or greenhouse gas reduction. So this was the brief summary of my thesis, and I am very grateful to my research advisory committee, Professor Deepak Dayanidhi, who is the chairman of my research advisory committee, Professor Naisal George, Professor Rudra Sen Sharma, and the chairman of the thesis evaluation committee, Professor Stanu Nair. Thank you so much.